What's going on, everyone?
No, I don't want no scrub. Scrub is a girl that can't get no love from me. Sitting in the passenger side of her best friend's ride. Try to holler at me.
Baby girl, you stay on my mind. Fulfill my fantasy. Tell me how you feel. I think about you all the time. You'll see it in my dreams.
Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight.
I love cheap thrills.
Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight.
I love cheap thrills. So rockabye, baby, rockabye. I'm gonna rock you, rockabye, baby. Don't you cry, no.
Well, Monday, where the time cold, I wanna be keeping you warm. I got the right temperature to shelter you from the storm.
So please have mercy on me and take it easy on my heart.
Like controller, controller.
Cause all we need is somebody to lead on.
Girl, you're my angel, you're my darling angel.
She caught me on the counter,
It wasn't me.
saw me banging on the sofa.
Cause I've been up all night, no sleep. Cause I feel like I'm always dreaming.
Who do you love? And are you sure?
Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
If I lay here, if I just lay here, would you lie with me? Just forget the world.
So wake me up before you go. Don't leave me hanging on like a yo-yo.
Jealousy turning saints into the sea, but it's just the price of pain. Destiny is calling me. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room, and now I bet you smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. I'm in love with the cocoa.
Let's not play. You told me to go and then you put your hands on me. Hands on me. Who do you love? Are you sure? Who do you love? And are you sure?
I came here with a broken heart that no one else could see. I drew a smile on my face to paper over me. But wounds heal when tears dry and cracks they don't show. So don't be so hard on yourself, no. Let's go back to simplicity. I feel like I've been missing me. Was not who I'm supposed to be. I felt this darkness over me. We all get there eventually. I never knew where I belong, but I was right and you were wrong. Been telling myself all along. Don't be so hard on yourself, though. Learn to forgive, learn to let go. Everyone trips, everyone falls. So don't be so hard on yourself, no. 'Cause I'm just tired of marching on my own. Kind of afraid I feel it in my bones. Won't let my heart turn into stone. So don't be so hard on yourself, no. I'm standing on top of the world, right where I wanna be. So how can this dark cloud keep raining over me? But hearts break and hell's a place that everyone knows. So don't be so hard on yourself, no. Let's go back to simplicity. I feel like I've been missing me. Was not who I'm supposed to be. I felt this darkness over me. We all get there eventually. I never knew where I belong, but I was right and you were wrong. Been telling myself all along. Don't be so hard on yourself, though. Learn to forgive, learn to let go. Everyone trips, everyone falls. So don't be so hard on yourself, no. 'Cause I'm just tired
all day and night. He hardly gets any sleep. Good gracious. And his work demands absolute consistency.
What do you do?
But is he brain surgeon? Not exactly.
Time to make the donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts. Up to 52 varieties fresh day and night. Who else goes to that trouble?
Don't be so hard on yourself, no.
Donuts are always fresh. To make the donuts. To make them at least twice every day. And to make the donuts. Smart food guys like supermarket. Time to make the donuts, but up to 52 varieties. Dunkin' Donuts, up to 52 varieties, fresh day and night. No supermarket.
Cause I'm just tired of marching on my own. Kind of frail, I feel it in my bones. Won't let my heart turn into stone. So don't be so hard on yourself, no.
Oh, yeah. Phoebe? Right. Kidding.
I'm living for the paycheck and the love. I'm gonna be a legend just because.
You know,
I've been working so hard
go up.
to get respect. Want a wheel, want a deal, wanna feel like a president.
Yeah.
Oh, you can call me. Money, 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 money. Someday I'll be.
Will be.
Money, money. 'Cause baby, I'm just living life, giving my all day and night. Not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill. Tell you I'm just feeling like it's about.
Come run with Dunkin', because we run on people and pride, career opportunities and community, staying focused on safety and staying connected. Hours that work for you and local owners that work with you. Education perks and people perks. Happy crew making happy customers and team members that are more like family members. Dunkin' runs on you. Come run with us. Visit DunkinDonuts.com/careers for opportunities at participating franchise locations or apply in store.
Face, and I'm the one. I'ma rise, I'ma shine, I'ma fire just like the sun. Oh, you can call me. Money, 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 money. Someday I'll be. Money, money. 'Cause baby, I'm just living life, giving my all day and night. Not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill. Tell you I'm just feeling like it's about time. Yeah, the time is right. Not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill.
It's all about the dollar bill. It's all about the dollar bill. Kidding. I got money on my mind, my mind on the money. Try and see my ID, here's 100. I ain't changed with these chains to my stomach. I'm just trying to ball hard like it's any given Sunday, yeah. Drop, T-top when it's sunny, doing 90 to 100. Feel the wind through your ponytail. Shopping in the summer, trying to fit the fall. Can't ship it next day, then we hit the mall. Ain't no reason saving, my ends just got paid and I spent it.
'Cause baby, I'm just living my not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill, dollar bill, dollar bill. It goes down until they're putting my face on a dollar bill. You know that I'm
Oh yeah. Phoebe, right? Kidding.
I'm living for the paycheck and the love. I'm gonna be a legend just because.
You know,
I've been working so hard
go up.
to get respect. Want a wheel, want a deal, wanna feel like a president.
Yeah.
Oh, you can call me money, 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 money. Someday I'll be
Will be.
money, money. 'Cause baby, I'm just living life, giving my all day and night. Not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill. Tell you I'm just feeling like it's about time. Yeah, the time is right. Not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill.
It's all about the dollar bill. You know,
Don't need anybody.
no, no.
I got myself, and I've been doing alright
Alright.
without your help. I think they need a new face, and I'm the one. I'ma rise, I'ma shine, I'ma fire just like the sun. Oh, you can call me money, 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 money. Someday I'll be money, money. 'Cause baby, I'm just living life, giving my all day and night. Not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill. Tell you I'm just feeling like it's about time. Yeah, the time is right. Not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill.
It's all about the dollar bill. It's all about the dollar bill. Kidding. I got money on my mind on the money. Try and see my ID, here's 100. I ain't changed with these chains to my stomach. I'm just tryna ball hard like it's any given Sunday, yeah. Drop, T-top when it's sunny, doing 90 to 100. Feel the wind through your ponytail. Shopping in the summer, tryna fit the fall. Can't ship it next day, then we hit the mall. Ain't no reason saving, my ends just got paid and I spent it.
'Cause baby, I'm just living my life. Not gonna stop until they're putting my face on a dollar bill, dollar bill, dollar bill, until they're putting my face on a dollar bill. You know that you know that
It's all about the dollar bill. Oh yeah. Phoebe, right? Kidding.
Needs lots of donuts, specialty donuts, filled donuts, jelly donuts. We're actually going to try some of their sandwiches as well, and honestly, whatever else I can get from the menu. Let's do it. We are in round 1, and obviously I was going to start with donuts because I'm not a cereal order. I also ordered an iced coffee for this round. I kind of panicked when I was ordering because I saw there was a line behind me, and I had more coffee drinks that I was going to order, but then I just kept this overwhelming guilt starting me in. I don't think it also started on your order and start freaking out and forgetting and just spit out for that. So I just ordered an iced coffee. Nothing wrong with iced coffee. I told them no sugar and all. So I remember ordering iced coffee from Dunkin' in college. I remember doing fake tasting. I didn't mind it. I mean, that's when I first started drinking coffee, so it tasted great to me at the time. This tastes more like real coffee. Like there's actual bean water in here. This is not breakfast. This is just dessert. Like just you put a candle on it and it makes it birthday cake. But that's not gonna stop me. And I think it says a lot about childhood Julia that this was her favorite donut. This is the consistency of a very thick, dense brownie. This is actually half a piece of so it's everything that the other donut was, except not as much as the
It's all about the dollar bill.
Rhode Island and New Orleans is great. These are very like, when I say words, it's the Dunkin' Donuts that I had in my childhood years. A lot of the donuts were pretty
Money on my mind on the
They
money.
would sit out like all day. Maybe it's also because I got these in the morning. These taste way fresher than what I Again, this is not a sponsored video. This is just me being very nice. I'm gonna do a palate cleanser and go with the old-fashioned donut.
Can't ship it next day, then we hit the mall. Ain't no reason saving my ends, just got paid and I spent it.
About that. So, while we're on the old-fashioned donut, this is what called that handmade. And Dunkin' Donuts was created in 1948, 2 years before 1950. It was more of a different name. So, Dunkin' Donuts was officially opened in 1950. The original name was Open Kettle. And the creator, the owner, the founder, the franchise realized that Open Kettle wasn't super sexy. So we had everyone in the certain room brainstorm, and that's the start of the Dunkin' Donuts. Okay, old-fashioned donut. I'm gonna try one bite, just regular, bare bones, and then I'm gonna dip it in the coffee. I know it's not hot coffee, but I know that old-fashioned donuts were meant for dipping into your coffee.
Pero tú puesta pa' mí, haciendo que me odien más, porque todos te quieren probar.
Here's cinnamon,
Lo que no
maybe some
saben es
clove,
que no te
and
dejes
nutmeg.
llevar de
This is a
cualquiera.
really great lip gloss scent.
Todos te quieren probar.
Maybe a candle.
Lo que no
It's like
saben es
misty
que
cinnamon.
yo te voy a buscar.
On its own, it's very dense and dry. I'm gonna dip it in coffee.
Tú misma lo decías cuando yo te lo hacía.
Even though it's not direct, it's still really good. If you're gonna get the old-fashioned donuts, you gotta dip it in your coffee. Gives it more flavor. We're gonna do the original glazed donut. It is way more pillowy than the old-fashioned donut. Like on top is the glazed donut, and then on the bottom is the old-fashioned. Look how different that is. Like that one's like squishy and pillowy, and this one's like you shall not pass. Such a different flavor from the old-fashioned one. It's not cake. Maybe it is more of a yeast, the really fluffy, buttery bread. I've never really bothered with the cream donuts. I just go straight for the chocolate donuts. So maybe I'm switching back. I did get into a really lovely debate with my friends one time that rainbow sprinkles are trash, but chocolate sprinkles are actually worth something because the chocolate ones actually are flavor. Rainbow sprinkles taste like melting candle wax. Just straight up brown batter smothered on a donut. I would use the same donut but ones with sprinkles. I ordered one of everything. I guess that means sprinkles too.
Over 1,600 tools and accessories to master every DIY project. Mastercraft.
I personally do not think that you can do much better than a strawberry frosted donut from Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, just look at this thing. It looks like something out of The Simpsons. I have had more of them than I care to admit, but hey, if you want to pause the video and run out and get one, I will understand. I mention it here because when talking about why this company is so successful, you can't ignore it. I'm not talking about this specific donut, but their entire menu. Over the years, millions of people around the globe have been enjoying their donuts and coffee and whatever else they have on their menu at the time, often on a daily basis, but there's more to it. There's no denying that they've been successful. They started as one location in the Boston area in 1950 and have since grown to over 13,000, making them the largest chain of donut shops in the world and most definitely the largest in the United States. Of the 13,000, almost 10,000 of them are in the US, which is about 3/4. They're primarily in the East, but they've been making a pretty good push over to the West Coast. They opened their first 2 California locations back in 2014 in Modesto and Santa Monica and have been expanding their presence there ever since. Just focusing on the US, their system-wide sales have been skyrocketing, now above $9 billion. That is a lot of money spent on coffee and donuts, which I guess you would almost expect with them opening all these new stores, but the number that makes it all truly impressive is their comparable store sales growth, which has been in the positive for the past 10 years, meaning they're opening all these new stores while on average increasing their sales at each one of those stores. It's impressive, and I'll ask you, in terms of size, what donut store even compares? The main one that comes to my mind is Krispy Kreme, which only had 1,000 locations as of their last public report in 2015. Tim Hortons would be a little different, but they still sell donuts. They have around 5,000 locations, plus both of those are more focused outside of the US, so I don't know if those make the best comparisons anyway. Whatever else you think of, I'm sure it's significantly lower, because when it comes to donut sales in the US, Dunkin' Donuts is the undisputed champion, and with the exception of Starbucks, it's pretty dominant when it comes to coffee as well. So I want to take a look back at this company while identifying some of the key factors that have contributed to their growth and success over the years. The man responsible for starting it all is Bill Rosenberg, who has a pretty inspirational story. His father was the owner of a local grocery store in the Boston area, and when the Great Depression happened, his business started to fail. It forced the 14-year-old Bill Rosenberg to drop out of the 8th grade to find a job and help support his family. He did various things that delivered papers and whatnot, until finding success as an ice cream truck driver when he was 17. The company he worked for was called Jack and Jill Ice Cream, and actually, by the time he turned 21, he had been promoted to sales manager. When World War II started, he left the ice cream business and became part of the effort working in the Boston shipyards. While he was there, he took notice of all these food carts that would come around and sell food and drinks to all of the workers. He then started thinking how he could do well in that business by making a few modifications to what they were doing. So he took out a loan, paired it with some of his savings, and surprisingly used the money to buy some old trucks from the telephone company. He converted those trucks into some of the first ever food trucks to start what he called the Industrial Lunch-In Services Company. The idea behind it was to locate the local factories that didn't have cafeterias, drive up and sell the workers food and snacks. It was a great, innovative idea at the time, so he did well. By 1948, the business had 200 drivers, and again, Bill noticed a new opportunity. As it turns out, almost half of his sales came from either coffee or donuts, which happened to be 2 of his highest margin items. It became clear that it'd be a smart idea to open a stationary restaurant specializing in those 2 items. He named it Open Kettle, which makes me think that the coffee took precedent over the donuts. Plus, they continued selling sandwiches and other foods too. After 2 years, Open Kettle became Dunkin' Donuts. I suspect that change had something to do with them placing a greater emphasis on the donuts. I say that because that's when they cut out some of their other food items from their menu and actually started offering 52 different varieties of donuts. That way they were able to promote one of them every week for the entire year, which was unheard of at the time. So there we have it. That's the start of Dunkin' Donuts. Their early success can be attributed to everything I just mentioned, including that unique variety of donuts. Over the next 5 years, he opened 5 survive more Dunkin' Donuts around the same area, but the issue was that it took a lot of money to open a new restaurant. So if the goal was to have hundreds or even thousands of them, they needed a new strategy. In 1955, they started franchising locations, something that's very common in quick service restaurants. That's where someone else would pay him to operate their own restaurant using his food and his brand. And I have to say, this accelerated their expansion and quickly became a huge part of their business. By 1963, they opened their 100th store, and by 1979, there were 1,000 of them. In fact, today, every single Dunkin' Donuts is franchised, all 13,000 of them. They actually make no money from the direct sales of their coffee and donuts. Instead, they collect a percentage of it through the agreements that they have with the franchisees. So when looking at how they got the name out there and how conveyed exactly what I mean by that, but just to compare, Starbucks has more of a higher end, fancier image, whereas Dunkin' Donuts has more of an everyday working class vibe. Just think of the early days, the founder, the area, how they started. Bill Rosenberg was working in the Boston shipyards when he came up with the idea of selling food to factory workers, even going into the 1980s. Quite possibly, their most popular ad campaign was Fred the Baker. You actually felt a little bad for Fred because he was always making donuts. It was a way to convey that when you went into the store, there would be fresh donuts because Fred the Baker had just made them. He sort of became their mascot for 15 years. And not unlike Bill Rosenberg and their target customers, he was a very hard-working person. That was the image that they wanted to convey, and that's the people they were trying to attract. The next big reason I have has to do with all of these acquisitions. Now, I'll admit that some of this gets a little messy, but stick with me because I think it gets really interesting. I'm gonna have to go back for a minute. When Bill Rosenberg was a teenager working at that ice cream company, one of his mentors was this guy named Harry Winokur. Over the years, they had grown really close, so much so that by the 1950s, in the early days of Dunkin' Donuts, the two had become not only good friends, but also business partners and, oddly enough, brother-in-laws. I won't get into that one, but before 1955, Harry Winokur owned a significant stake in Dunkin' Donuts. Well, when Bill wanted to start franchising, Harry disagreed. He must have felt very strongly about it too, because it motivated him to sell his stake back to Bill. He then left the company entirely. In the next year, in 1956, Harry started his own donut chain called Mr. Donut, which ironically grew pretty large through franchising. Yeah, I don't know, but by the early 1980s, they had grown into the second largest donut store behind only Dunkin' Donuts. Alright, it's gonna get a little more complex. Your mom's got it. Here. In 1989, a company called Allied Lions enters the picture. Their name was later changed to Allied Dominique, and today they no longer exist. They were primarily a brewing company out of Britain, but they were getting involved in everything. You might see where this is headed. In 1989, they acquired Dunkin' Donuts for the price of $325 million in cash, and they did it when they had just under 2,000 locations. Then, 1 year later, they also acquired Mr. Donut, who actually wasn't doing that well. Despite having over 500 locations, they were able to buy it for $28 million. Since the two chains were now under the same ownership for the first time ever, they contacted all the Mr. Donut franchisees and gave them the option to convert their stores into Dunkin' Donuts. Since that was the chain that was more well-liked, more well-known, more heavily advertised through the parent company, it was an attractive option. So effectively, all of the Mr. Donuts turned into Dunkin' Donuts, most of which reported a massive increase in sales soon after the change. Alright, I hope that was all clear, because it's strange. Harry Winokur left Dunkin' Donuts because he disagreed with franchising, so he started his own competing chain that grew through franchising and was morphed into Dunkin' Donuts. My point of all this is acquisitions like this one have helped them grow. Allied Lions also brought them together with Baskin-Robbins. There have been some transfers in ownership, but today we have a company called Dunkin' Brands that owns Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin-Robbins. The last thing I want to talk about is a little more recent, and it's their increasing emphasis on coffee. As we've already seen, it's always been a big part of their business. Going back to the food trucks and the open kettle, this entire time I've been saying coffee and donuts so many times. They do go together, and Dunkin' Donuts is so established in both markets that they could sort of pick which one they want to focus on more, right? right now, it's looking like coffee might be the more attractive market. People are becoming more health conscious, which doesn't help with the donut sales, and coffee has just become really popular. For a while now, they've been trying to cut down on their menu and reduce their donut variety. Meanwhile, they're shifting that focus toward the coffee. They refer to it as their beverage-led strategy. They say espresso is their fastest growing category, with US sales climbing almost 40% over the last year. They're offering new lattes and just placing a bigger emphasis on it. Actually, the name, I've been saying it wrong this entire time. Well, it's because I simply refuse to call it Dunkin' just yet, but that's their actual name as of January of 2019. It's not a silly gimmick like that whole IHOP thing either. It's an actual rebranding. All they're doing is taking donuts out of their name to basically simplify things and make them appear less focused on donuts. And I have to stop saying the word donuts so much. It may not even be a good idea, but it shows how they're willing to take chances to change with the times. They're looking into the future rather than hanging on to their success from the past, like many others who have failed. So that's my explanation. This is a company that's always been evolving, so the reason behind their success changes with the time. At first, it was more about the donut variety and those other things, and then it became more about the franchising aspect. Their working class image and Fred the Baker became important, and then the acquisitions played a big part in it. Right now, I'd say their name changing their emphasis is the biggest thing happening. But when you combine all of it over the past 70+ year span, I think it starts to paint a picture of the success of Dunkin' Donuts. Let me know in the comments, have you tried that strawberry frosted donut yet? The chocolate one's good too, but I think it's that visual of the strawberry one that really puts it over the top. Also, I guess more importantly, how do you explain the success of Dunkin' Donuts? Mine is not a comprehensive list, but rather the things that I found to be most significant over the years, tied in with some things that I found to be either motivating or interesting, so let me...
Pulse. Breathe it in.
We know Dunkin' Donuts are always fresh and come in more varieties than supermarkets. But we like to make sure.
Do you have delicious chocolate frosted donuts like Dunkin' Donuts?
No.
Do you have high kinds of jelly donuts?
No. Ma'am.
These made fresh this morning?
No. Good. Dunkin' Donuts. Up to 52 varieties made fresh day and night. No supermarket can say that.
Many know the saying that America runs on Dunkin' Donuts, but few know the story behind the founder, William Rosenberg. In the 8th grade, he dropped out of school to support his family and became the genius of many inventions. One of them being franchising, which paved the way for McDonald's, KFC, Subway, and other chains to succeed. In 1916, William was born to immigrant Jewish parents in a humble urban neighborhood called Dorchester in Boston. His family owned a grocery store, but were still considered poor and struggled to pay their bills since they didn't save enough for the down payment. So William started delivering groceries for them and worked several odd jobs as early as 10 years old. He picked up and dropped off laundry, sorted mail, shined shoes, handed out newspapers, gave out ice cream, and even sold pieces of ice. Some days, he had to climb 3 flights of stairs with a heavy block of ice and a big water pan underneath. At the end of the day, he was so exhausted he could barely move. Still, he took pride in his work and the lessons that it taught him. I learned that if I believed I could do something and had a positive attitude and was there to serve people, I could succeed. It didn't make any difference if I was shining shoes or selling newspapers. Maintaining a positive attitude prepared him for many unfortunate events. When the Great Depression hit, William and his family survived, emotionally and financially, but not without sacrifice. William insisted on dropping out of school in the 8th grade to support the family after they lost their store. Not long after, he got a full-time job delivering telegrams. The faster he pedaled his bike and the harder he worked, the more commission he earned. Eventually, he became the best in his division, but he quit after 3 years to make more money at Simcoe, a company that sold ice cream out of refrigerated trucks. It was there where he met his first mentor, Harry Winokur. Harry was an accountant for Simcoe, who taught William everything he needed to know about balance sheets, statements, and figures. These skills helped him grow within the company. Over 4 years, he rose from being a delivery boy to a manager and later a national sales manager. His time at the company helped him start a new life altogether. He married Harry's sister-in-law, started a family, and moved into a high-class neighborhood. Good fortune was finally on his side, up until he received a message that he was bound to hear. The draft board informed him that he would have to fight in the Second World War unless he found an essential job. So he left Simcoe and headed towards a nearby shipyard in search of a new job. They offered him a handyman position for minimum wage, but he wasn't happy. Are you kidding me? I have a refrigerator engineer license, William barked. What does that qualify you for? They asked. Plumbing or electrical? William answered. The shipyard was impressed and offered William a job as an electrician and the highest salary they could afford. The only problem is that while William did obtain a license while working for Simcoe, he could barely put a plug in the socket. It didn't take long for William's manager to find out. He was electrocuted on his first day at work and switched to the cable department. Still, his manager saw potential in him and paired him with a couple of his top technicians. Like Harry, they mentored him and taught him everything he needed to know. It goes to prove that no matter how little you know, if you're eager to learn, ask questions, and go to the right people, you can do almost anything. Over a decade, William went from being an 8th grade dropout to an electrician in training. Deep down, William knew that being an electrician wasn't for him, so he started to look for other opportunities at the shipyard. With support from his colleagues, he won the position of a union delegate and was later promoted to contract coordinator. Since this new position was considered essential, he never got called to fight in the war, but his youngest brother Donald did. Similar to William, Donald rose through the ranks quickly and became a lieutenant in the army. Though Donald never got to enjoy the same freedom as William. He never made it back home. He was killed in the war. When William received the news, he was devastated. Losing Donald made him reflect on what he was capable of and what he always wanted to accomplish, starting his own business. Life will test you, that's a promise. It's what you do with the challenges that determine your failure or your success. Around that time, William was approached by two men who had heard about his success at Simcoe. They wanted him to work for their new catering company, Industrial Luncheon Services. When William turned down their offer, they offered to give him a third of the company for $2,500. Harry looked into the opportunity for him and encouraged him to go for it. So with $1,500 in war bonds and a $1,000 loan from his mother, he became a partner. As William grew the company and quadrupled sales, he realized that he made a big mistake. His partners were the wrong people to get into business with. They secretly sold products on the black market and were only interested in making a quick buck. So William decided to cut ties with them and run his own catering company with Harry. The loss of Donald gave him the confidence he needed and faith that nothing could stop him. To save money, he and his wife and two kids moved into a single room in his parents' house. It was a tough time for them, but worth it considering his former partners never gave his money back. Fortunately, working with them led to discovering a commodity that would change William's luck: coffee. At the time, few Americans knew how to make quality coffee. Instead of grinding and brewing the beans, they boiled an instant mix into a pot and kept it hot for several hours, which made it lose flavor. It either tasted burnt or like flavored water. Still, coffee made up 40% of William's former partner's sales. He had a hunch that Americans would one day be hooked on quality coffee and that it would become the backbone of his business. So he ordered a 100-gallon stainless steel tank with a bag on top to make drip coffee. After the water was boiled, it would be poured over the coffee grounds just until the brew reached the right strength. He also decided to order gallons of cream and milk instead of the artificial plastic containers from the best dairy company around. When William told his suppliers about his business, they became curious. They asked how much he had planned to charge for a cup of coffee. 10 cents a cup, William told them. Are you crazy? You can't charge that much. Even the high-class hotels sell coffee for 5 cents a cup, they told them. Others are selling 6 ounces of flavored water, but I'm gonna sell 12 ounces of quality coffee, William said. You can't do that, they argued. Watch me, William insisted. William had big plans, and no one could stop him. He was a natural entrepreneur who was always thinking about how he could do things better and more efficiently. So when he came up with the idea of catering food out of a truck and discovered there were few left after the war, he pivoted towards something different. He bought 10 taxi cabs and chassis and built insulated food trucks with side hinges, heating units, stainless steel shelves, and a coffee tank holder. Inside, he would serve top quality sandwiches, soups, donuts, pastries, and coffee. That's how we designed what is commonly called a food truck. You see them everywhere now. We were innovators and creators, doing things differently. Running the business was never easy. William got up at 2 a.m. every day to prepare the food and coffee for his drivers. But they became a hit, and within a year, he landed his prominent feature in the Boston Herald with the headline, Meals on Wheels. Eventually, the business expanded into running cafeterias. William and his employees would buy, install, and operate the equipment for many companies. And just as he predicted, people were hooked on his coffee. He even struggled to keep up with the demand until he hired an engineering firm to create a custom machine. He was one of the few Americans who knew people were willing to pay for quality coffee.
I hit the mic like boom. Wrote a song about it like to hear it go. Style will hit you, damn, then goddamn. You'll be like, oh shit, that's the jam. Turn it up now, hear me get up, walk while I'm about to blow, light me up. Upside, downside, inside, outside. Hit me from every angle, there's no doubt. Poetry, emotion, coast to coast, and rub it in your skin like lotion. I'm about to go get lifted. I got myself a 40. I got myself a shorty.
You might be itching for adventure from being inside for too long, but now we can get out. Wearing pants may feel.
3 years after opening, William discovered a new commodity, donuts. Along with coffee, it brought over 40% of his sales. Coffee and donuts are like husband and wife, William would say. So he decided to make his own instead of purchasing them, and poached the baker from his seller, Alvin Johnson. It was a smart move. Alvin told William that at his last company, their donut store made more money than their wholesale trucks since they didn't have to pay any delivery costs. William was shocked and could feel the same fire in his belly that he felt when he started his catering company. There was no question that he would make quality donuts and open a store too. That weekend, William drove around Boston to find the right location for the